Welcome to Convince Me, presented by Bet365. We are kicking off the Power Hour, the only NFL pregame show with all the stuff you care about. None of the fluff of those other pregame shows. I am Chad Millman. Over the next 30 minutes, my Action Network buddies, Sean Koerner, Simon Hunter, and Chris Raybon, are going to convince me what props, what sides, what totals, what bets I should make for Sunday Night Football. Plus, we got Evan Abrams and Darren Rovell at the Action Network news desk with all the market news, all the data, all the trends, all the stats to make you smarter than all of your friends. At the bottom half of the Power Hour, Gilles Gallant, Brian Matthews, Charlie Disturco. They will have the touchdown show with the best info on bet and touchdown props for the day. Don't forget, me and my co-host Simon Hunter from the Favorites Podcast, December 3rd live show, Sunday night, Shepherd and the Knucklehead in Hoboken, New Jersey. It's our Sunday podcast going live, December 3rd. Check out the info below in the Power Hour YouTube description or eventbrite.com. Search the Favorites Podcast for more info. Before we begin, reminder, like this video, subscribe to the Action Network YouTube page. All the picks we discussed today available for free in the award-winning Action Network app. Download it now to keep track of everything. And don't forget, one more reminder. BetSync, your Bet365 bets with the Action app, is the coolest, slickest way to track your picks with ease and speed. Click the My Accounts button in the My Action tab in the Action app. All right, let's get into it. As always, because when Sean Koerner puts a pick in the script, the lines move. So I have no idea what you're doing because I just got a blank space.
Well, I am going with Zach Charbonnet. Longest run over 10.5 yards. You can get it minus 110 right now. And, Charbonnet has had a fairly quiet rookie season, mainly because he plays behind one of the best running backs in the league, and Kenneth Walker, who's been healthy all season and really hasn't done anything to warrant losing too many snaps to his rookie backup. But Charbonnet is quickly becoming one of the best backups in the league. 26% of his runs have gone for 10 or more yards this season, and 45% of his runs have resulted in a first down. Both metrics are just off the charts good. He ranks top 2 in both metrics. And this is also a matchup against the Rams where he should have room to run. The Rams are allowing 2 yards before contact to running backs, which is the 5th highest in the league. When Charbonnet gets 2 yards before contact this season, he's averaging 10.5 yards a carry. Only Breece Hall and Devon Achane are higher than him in that metric. So I think the longest rush market is the best way to invest in Charbonnet's raw talent because, it might not matter too much what the game script is or if he's even able to eat into Kenneth Walker's workload. I think this is the best way to invest in his talent. And I'm projecting his median closer to 12 in this market with a 61% chance he clears this.
You have gone to the Zach Charbonnet well before on this show. I feel like you've loved him all season long.
Oh, yeah. Sam Laporta and Zach Charbonnet were probably my 2, and Jordan Addison were my 3 favorite rookies. I love Charbonnet coming out of UCLA. It was a bit unfortunate he got drafted by the Seahawks because, like I said, they already have one of the best running backs in the league, but he gave me Nick Chubb vibes. I think he's a really good running back, and he's proved it this year. It's just really hard to get work behind Kenneth Walker.
All right, Simon, I like what Koerner's saying. What do you got?
Chad, I'm going to any touchdown route, but going with Mostert, the running back for the Miami Dolphins. I think most people know if you're a fantasy player how special this guy's been this season, but the general public might not realize how good this guy's been scoring touchdowns this year. And I feel like this week we're getting a discount, Chad, on the number. It's down in most books to minus 125. I've seen some books have it as high as 150, so definitely shop around. But it's a good number. It's a number that's priced out weird because all the running backs are healthy for the Dolphins now. And I think the public's overreacting to the fact that McDaniels already said Mostert's their goal line back. When they get down there, he's still the guy they're going to give the ball to. So the other running backs, they might get touches between the 20s, but I still believe that Mostert's their guy when they get to the red zone. And we've seen it this year. Even when everyone was fully healthy, he was still the guy they would trust getting the goal line carries. So the fact that we expect this game to have a lot of points against the Raiders from Miami, you have a lot of opportunities to score in the red zone. I love this number. I feel like you're getting a great discount just because Achan's coming back this week and people are kind of reacting to that. So the fact that this number's moved so much for a guy who scored, I think in 7 out of 9 games that the Dolphins have played this season, it's pretty crazy. So for me, I'm taking anytime touchdown. I'm sprinkling a little bit on the multiple touchdown because we've seen it this year. He's the running back that scores 2 to 3 touchdowns per game when he does score. So you might as well throw a little bit on the off chance that he gets a receiving touchdown or a rushing touchdown on the multiple touchdown game.
Little tiny taste. Look, I can't believe any guy in the Dolphins could score multiple touchdowns today. This line has moved from 10 to 14, a big number, a lot of expectations for the Dolphins to score a lot of points. Chris Raybon, please tell me what your player prop is.
Chad, I'm going with Chig Okonkwo, under 28.5 receiving yards. He's been under that number in 6 of his 9 games already this season. But last week, it was kind of went under the radar, but he saw a season low in his route participation. He was down to 56%, and their rookie tight end Josh Wiley was up to 37%. And remember, Wiley's the guy that Levis was targeting at the end of the game in Pittsburgh too. So as the season progresses, he might start to see more and more playing time, and that would come at Chig's expense. So we're going under with him, and I don't know how you can't choose this. I mean, you don't want to root for a guy to break a long run or score a touchdown. You got to go with this under.
You know what? I was thinking the exact same thing, because I was thinking, like, where do I want, like, the most opportunity? This feels like I can get that. So guess what, Raybon? Right off the bat, I'm going with you. I also wonder sometimes, you guys can answer this. Is there something to be said for when a new quarterback comes in who was the backup, for other players that he's been practicing with more often to get more opportunities? So Raybon, you're shaking your head. What do you think of that theory?
Yeah, I mean, me and Sean have talked about this. I'd say yes, there's anecdotal evidence. Like I haven't at least done a study on it or anything, but I know there's been numerous times when Sean and I are kind of looking at guys for DFS, and you see a little bit of an uptick with some of the guys that, yeah, they played a lot of preseason reps with and they practice with. Because remember, especially as a quarterback, you're going to kind of go to who you're comfortable with. And for Levis, it's been, like either spam DeAndre Hopkins with targets, but he's also starting to go to the rookie Wiley, who he obviously has practiced more. And that kind of makes sense. It's either a veteran who's already established or the guys So, yeah, we've seen that.
I'm so glad that you didn't come after me for creating a false narrative. I never know when I ask a question how it's going to go. So this,
I mean, just don't create false narratives, and you kind of like eliminate that possibility from happening.
That was a good one, actually.
Thank you, Koerner. How would you like to compliment me and my theory? Please tell me.
No, I'm just saying that you must have been listening to the Fantasy Flex, because me and Raybon talk about that all the time.
Or maybe he hasn't been listening, and that's why he's asking us this question.
Listen, this doesn't need to go sideways. This doesn't need to go sideways and become an attack on me, okay? Koerner, tell me about your sides.
Well, I have a really gross one for you today, Chad, and it's Browns -2. We're fading the Steelers again this week. This ranks as the top luck rank game again this week because we're fading the Steelers, who continue to be lucky. Although last week, that wasn't a luck win. They should have won if you take away that weird lateral play. But the Steelers are now 6-0 in 1-score games. This is despite having trailed by an average of 31 minutes per game this season. The only other 6 teams that have trailed by 30 minutes or more a game, their average record is 3-7 on the year. So it just goes to show how lucky the Steelers are to be 6-3 right now. Over 80% of the action is on the Steelers, which means I think the public is on board with the Steelers 6-3 start right now. And while it doesn't feel great to bet on Dorian Thompson-Robinson after his week 4 just absolutely awful start against the Ravens, we have to remember he was solid in preseason. I know it's the preseason, but he was good enough to actually leapfrog Josh Dobbs, who everybody knows and loves by now, which prompted the Browns to trade him away. So I think he's probably somewhere between where how he looked in the preseason and week 4, which is probably more than enough to win this game, honestly. And we also have to consider he's not replacing Jalen Hurts here. He's replacing the Cleveland Browns version of Deshaun Watson, where if you look at his season metrics, he ranks between 20th and 30th in most of the key metrics I like to look at quarterback. So, I don't think it's that big of a drop off going to DTR. I think their game plan can be pretty conservative, lean on the run, lean on their defense. He has massive rushing upside. I think they'll be better to tap into that this week with a full week to prepare. I look at defensive line, offensive line matchups. This has one of the biggest matchups you could draw up with Myles Garrett going up against left tackle Dan Moore. Probably one of the biggest matchups in the league, to be honest. So I think he's going to be able to exploit that, create some havoc, make life difficult for Kenny Pickett. So I know this is gross. I'm surprised it's up to -2 with all the action on the Steelers, but I think the Browns -2 is the way to go here.
Well, look, I feel like you're creating a little bit of a false narrative by saying 80% of the money is on the Steelers because of their record. 80% of the money is on the Steelers because Dorian Thompson-Robinson is starting at quarterback.
True.
And what's interesting about this number is it was all the way up to 4.5 last Sunday before the news about Deshaun Watson, and it was trending down. And then it got down to 1, and then money has come back in on the Browns, which is interesting to me. I'm actually surprised that money did come back in on the Browns. There is a mountain of history and precedent against you and taking the favorite at home in the division with this pick, Koerner. I don't know. I mean, I'm a big Steelers backer, and I keep waiting for sort of that game of roulette to come catch me, because back in the Steelers every week, it seems like you're backing them in the spot where they're the right side. It's a Tomlin rah-rah spot. They're on the side of precedent. It's a scary thought to back the Steelers. Even scarier to back the Browns here. Simon, can you give me a better alternative?
I can, Chad. I was also going to give you an ugly pick. I was looking at Carolina, looking at Arizona, end up going pure chalk. Taking Chargers first half against the Packers. I just couldn't pass on the number. Going against Jordan Love, that number full game is just horrible, right? I think all week we've been looking at that. It's been +3. I want to get there in Green Bay. I was waiting for it to get to 3.5, never got there. So I'll go play the other side. I'll take the Chargers first half, and it's simply about Herbert. He's the kind of quarterback that I don't really trust him to close games out, nor do I trust those coaches. But I do trust him first half, and these numbers are from Evan. Herbert is 34-25 first half ATS. He's 17-10 first half ATS since the start of last season. Third best in the NFL. Like, clearly this guy comes out really well prepared and they play really well. It's the defense that's failed him. If you go through his stats, they win. If his defense holds teams under 27 points, I think he's 22-5. When they allow more than 27 points, they're terrible. So you expect them to get a win here, the Chargers. I don't trust the number. It's been weird all week. People have been betting the Chargers all week, and the number has not moved off the 3. I'm going the coward's way, Chad. I'm taking the first half. You can either get a -105, right? I mean, -1.5 or -2.5. Obviously, you'd want to find that 1.5. It's just a good number for a team that we've seen historically. They play well in the first half. Second half, if you want to throw a little on Green Bay, totally get it. Herbert's terrible, especially protecting a lead in the second half. So the fact that this number has come down so much, you can get it at -1.5. I just got to take that number for the first half.
Well, look, you said the magic words, right? There's something about this coaching staff that has not been able to help this team close games. And that stat is revelatory. When you're winning in the first half, it's as much about what you have in terms of talent on the roster. And then when you're losing in the second half, it's about the adjustments your coaching staff is or is not making to help you continue to succeed. That's a fascinating stat. I know it's a cowardly choice, but I don't mind it because the stats are so interesting. Raybon, give me a side.
Go with the Los Angeles Rams -2 against the Seahawks. I mean, this is what my guy Stuckey likes to call the NFC West circle of life. You have one team that just tends to dominate the other. And in this matchup, it's been the Rams. They're 10-4 against the spread against Seattle since Sean McVay took over. 9-1 in their last 10, 6-0 in their last 6. Let's not forget week 1, they outgained the Seahawks 426 to 180. And Geno Smith has struggled against this Raheem Morris defense. So there's another situation where Brandon Staley leaves, and it's even tougher for Geno. But he in the last 2 meetings, he's thrown for just 325 yards combined, the same number of turnovers as touchdowns. He's averaging under 6 yards an attempt. And last year in this matchup, there was a playoff berth on the line for the Seahawks. No Aaron Donald for the Rams, amid so many other players sitting out for the Rams, and Geno still couldn't really do anything. He's 19th in EPA per play. Stafford is 15th, so you got the better quarterback. You got the coaching staff, one of the few coaching staffs who can actually contend with Pete Carroll's squad, and you have a quarterback in Geno Smith who's struggled against his defense. So give me the Rams.
Yeah, Geno's such an interesting quarterback this year, and the Seahawks are such an interesting team. They're probably been overvalued. And look, they have sort of had that terrible loss a couple weeks ago to the Ravens, and then they needed a miracle to beat the Commanders at home in a game when a lot of people thought, oh, maybe this is the right side and it's a bounce back spot. I think their defense might be a little bit overrated. I think Geno is he's good. He's just not as good as he was last year, which might have been an anomaly. His defensive now have a better understanding of how to play him. Question. I always get a little nervous betting teams that go from underdogs to favorites. All things being equal, Raybon, if this number hadn't moved, let's say we knew from the beginning of the week Stafford was going to be playing, where do you rate this?
I always had the Rams as a favorite. So, but if I knew I was going to get handed a pick, I would have just gone with my Steelers, because you seem not to like Sean's pick. So now it's and Simon's calling his pick cowardly. So I feel like I had a free one if I just went with the Steelers. But no, I still like the Rams as favorite. You aren't getting the best of the number. I agree. It was a lot better to get them, +1, +1.5. But I still think they're the right side. I think they win this game. That's what's historically happened in this matchup.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Simon and the Chargers in the first half, -1.5. Totally cowardly.
That's a rich coward right there.
Yeah. By the way, you know what? You put money in your pocket, you're not that much of a coward. All right. Let's go to the Action Network news desk. We got Darren Rovell and Evan Abrams. Boys, take it away.
Thanks, Chad. It's going to be a big week here in the NFL. Obviously, with the huge spreads, it's going to be either the public, the bettors winning, or the sports books winning. Major parlays. The sports books obviously are going to have a underdog or a couple underdogs win to bust all those up. But big day, bettors win or sportsbooks win. Most bet games: Bears, Lions, Steelers, Browns, and Cowboys, Panthers. Most bet teams: Lions, no surprise, the cover champions, -7.5. The Cowboys -10.5, and the Steelers +2.5. We know they're the luckiest team in our rankings, but public doesn't pay attention to that yet. Most bet overs: Cardinals, Texans 48, Bears, Lions 48, Buccaneers 49ers 41.5, and the most bet unders: Steelers, Browns 33. Steelers are 7-2 to the under this year. Eagles, Chiefs 45.5, Raiders, Dolphins 45.5. Most bet underdogs to win outright. Again, people are buying the Steelers hype despite the fact that their actual data doesn't look that great. So Steelers number 1 at +115, the Vikings number 2 at +125, and the Eagles +120. Most bet player props: Jahmyr Gibbs over 25.5 receiving yards, Kareem Hunt over 8.5 rushing attempts, and Jerome Ford over 13.5 rushing attempts. So again, big day, bettors versus sports books. The Steelers are going to be the most interesting one to see what happens there. Public is majorly hyped on them, despite the fact that they're luckiest. Let's see what happens.
All right. Thank you, Darren. Evan, talk to me.
Sure. So Koerner didn't take the Browns earlier. Darren just talked about the Browns-Steelers total. So I want to go into that a little bit more. It was 33. It was the second lowest total in the last 10 years. Last was also a Cleveland game with Walton, Watson, and Andy Dalton. But now it's up to 34.5. So ticking up. Wind is actually coming down in that game, which might be a reason. It was like 20 miles an hour, now down to about 8. Interesting enough, 5 of the 9 totals below 35 since 2011 have included the Browns. So we're kind of used to this spot with them. And interesting enough, totals 37 or less, 18-4-1 to the under since 2020. So we've been seeing some of that. Now moving on to the next one. Now, Darren likes the Bills today, as he just mentioned, and this stat's going to kind of back him up a little bit. This just feels made up. The Jets and Giants are a combined 16 and 63 straight up. That is 20% in games played at 4 p.m. Eastern or later since 2017. Prime time, the big spot, it's been really bad. Jets 8-23, Giants are 8-40. And then finally, the Lions. So I feel like we have to talk about precedents here. They're 7-2 against the spread this season, 30-13 against the spread since 2021. That's the best 3-year stretch for any team since the 16-18 Patriots. And to talk about how good the Lions have been just themselves, they have been favored by an average of 2.8 points per game this year. That would be an end-of-year high for Detroit since 1972. Back to you, Chad.
The Lions are a juggernaut. And let's also give a hat tip to Brandon Anderson, who does his hot read segment on the podcast, Evan, that you do on Sunday nights, recapping the weekend with Gilles Gallant. Brandon will look ahead to lines. He pinpointed the Browns and the Steelers total. It was at 38.5 when it opened, and he was telling people to bet the under all the way back then, obviously before the Dorian Thompson-Robinson news. But nice job, Brandon Anderson, for getting ahead of the number. All right, Convince Me is presented by Bet365. Bet365 doesn't do ordinary. That's why you get more boosts with them than with anyone else. Every day they power up the odds on hundreds of bets to give you a chance to win more. Bet365 boosts specific markets, your winnings, and even parlays. And they don't stop there. Keep an eye out for their biggest and best odds with the incredible Super Boost. Check out the boosts and see why it's never ordinary. At Bet365, must be 21 or older and present in Colorado, Iowa, New Jersey, Ohio, or Virginia, or 18 and older in Kentucky. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. Terms, conditions, restrictions apply. All right, fellas. Last round of the day games. Let's talk about some totals. Koerner, what do you got?
I got the Bears Lions under 48. And this grades as our best luck total under of the week at with a rating of -6. A big part of that is due to just both these defenses ranked bottom 3 in red zone touchdown percentage allowed. Both defenses should regress closer to league average in that metric going forward, which should lower, the scoring environment for their games, especially considering neither defense is that bad. The Lions defense ranks 9th in DVOA. Linebacker Alex Anzalone has been playing out of his mind since week 4. And I think he's going to be a key reason why, they're going to slow down Justin Fields a bit, who could be a bit rusty. It's his first game since week 6, coming back from that thumb injury. And the Bears defense, I think they're underrated. I mentioned several weeks ago that their run defense is actually very good, with mainly due to linebacker TJ Edwards being a huge part of that. And our Action Network Discord has sort of made it a theme to fade running backs going up against the Bears. And it's been very profitable the past month or so. They also recently acquired Montez Sweat, which is going to help their pass rush a ton. They have the second lowest pressure rate on the season, but he's going to help with that. He already did last week. He had 7 pressures last week. That's going to help take some pressure off their secondary, make the run defense even better. So I like the idea of, investing in 2 underrated defenses, due for some positive regression here. Plus, Scott Novak will be the ref for this game, 3rd most profitable ref for the under since 2020. It's gone 35 and 21 since then, 6-3 to the under this year. So a lot of reasons I like this under.
Listen, I am loath to compliment Raybon. So this is a half compliment for Raybon because he and Stuckey had a fantastic conversation about the Bears defense in the Action Network podcast in the Sunday 6-pack that went live on YouTube on Wednesday night. And talking about the Bears run defense being, I guess, not terrible is a fair way to describe it. Like underrated in the fact that it's mediocre because of the play of Edwards and their linebackers in an area they've invested in. But whoosh, that is a terrible secondary. Healthier, but terrible. Simon, what do you got?
Got another under for you, Chad. Give me the Jags Titans under. Shop around. This number's been moving. Some books are showing 41 now, so definitely look for the best of this number. I'm giving out here at 40. It's just a classic divisional under game. Like these two are two teams that offensively they've struggled these last couple of weeks. Will Levis came out on fire. People were drinking the Kool-Aid. Everyone was about it. I've just been fading the guy every week since that week one, right? It's a classic rookie. He came out, threw a bunch of deep balls. It worked out for him. He had his eyes closed. You can go back and look at the film. He didn't know what Hopkins was doing. He was just throwing the ball down there. More numbers from our guy, Evan, just about how bad Will Levis has been since he's come in. Of the 41 quarterbacks with at least 60 plays this season, the Titans rookie quarterback has the fourth lowest success rate. So he's only players he's ahead of, only guys he's ahead of right now in all football that match that stat is Tommy DeVito, Zach Wilson, and PJ Walker. That's how bad Will Levis has been. So when we have a total like this in a divisional game, I'm already going to be slanted towards taking the under. And it's just basically because these outdoor divisional games, especially as you get late in the year, it's an automatic play for me. And it sounds lazy, it sounds boring, but it's profitable. And we have the numbers that back it up. Outdoor divisional unders, 96 and 66, 60% since 2021. So these are just spots you want to play. You want to take divisional games outdoors to the under when you get into November, December. So already like this spot. The fact that we have a rookie here playing against the Jaguars. We already know the other side, right? Vrabel defense. That's how they're going to have to win this game. If they're going to win, somehow upset the Jags, it's got to be through the defense and taking away what this Jaguars offense wants to do. So, the fact that this number's gone up is a little scary, Chad, but to me, that's just giving me more value. So hopefully you can get that 41.
Classic Vrabel spot. Big dog in the division on the road. Classic spot to play overall. A road dog in a division game. I like that you're giving me the under. You say it's boring. You say your other pick is cowardly. A lot of really rich, boring cowards in the world, Simon.
Hopefully.
Raybon, give me something.
Go Jets Bills first half under 19.5. And I like I think the first half makes more sense here because the Bills just fired their offensive coordinator, Ken Dorsey. Sean McDermott's still the head coach. He wants them to get back to establishing a run. He doesn't want them to turn the ball over as much. So I think you're going to see a little bit more run heavy attack from the Bills. I think, and that includes Josh Allen, but I think the Bills are going to have to score on some longer drives, even if they do score. And then on the other side, you have the Jets, who are averaging just over 7 first half points a game, bottom 4 in the league in the first half. In the last 3 meetings, these teams have averaged just 15.7 first half points a game. And Josh Allen's really struggled against the Jets, averaging just 252 total yards and more turnovers than touchdowns over the last 3. So the reason I like the first half more, number one, I think you can see the Bills come out run heavier. Number two, one of these teams is going to be down in the second half. And I don't want Josh Allen or Zach Wilson throwing, more than I need, because then you're going to start seeing turnovers that could inflate the score. So going with the first half, not trying to be cowardly, but I think that's the better play.
Sometimes being cowardly just means being strategic, right? I like all 3 of these picks. I think they're fantastic. It's hard not to go with Koerner when he's throwing me just complete trigger words like, luck rankings and official stats. That's catnip for me. So give me the Bears Lions under 48. I think it's fantastic. It was at 48.5. Are you seeing it now at 48, Koerner?
Well, obviously, if you can get 48.5, get it. That's what I got last night. But I think the best available number is 48. I think it is on the move.
All right. Sunday Night Football. Here we go. Great matchup. We got Minnesota and Denver. If you had said 3 weeks ago this was going to be a great matchup, no one would have believed you. But now 2 of the hottest teams in the NFL with 2 of the most interesting quarterback stories in the NFL. Simon Hunter and I broke down Josh Dobbs and Russell Wilson in our favorites YouTube-only film room video that's live now. Denver was a 2.5-point favorite. It went up to 3. It went back down to 2.5. It's back up to 3. 45% of the bets, 65% of the money coming in on the Denver Broncos. The total's at 41.5. Sean Koerner, what do you got?
So I'll have my official Sunday Night Football time prop later today, but here's a fun defensive player prop for you. Harrison Smith under 6.5 tackles and assists. You can get it at minus 135. He's only cleared this in 2 of 10 games this season, and this isn't a matchup where he's likely to break that trend. The Broncos have allowed the second fewest tackles a game to opposing safeties, so it's not a great matchup for safeties. And he gets a pretty even number of tackles in both the run and pass game. You know, the Vikings are expected to face roughly the same number of rush attempts they faced all season, around 27.5. But Russ Wilson's completion prop is only 19.5. That's 5 fewer completions than the Vikings typically face. So that's a big reason why I'm projecting Harrison Smith closer to 5.5 tackles, with about a 63% chance he stays under 6.5.
You've been on these tackle props, and that's something new this year.
Yeah.
I've made a few bets tailing you on the tackle props. I like that one a lot. Simon.
Chad, I'm going Denver here at home. Yeah, like you said, the number's been on the move. Hopefully you can find the minus 2.5. And it's the simple play of I'm getting Denver at home against a third string quarterback. And I know people can't believe to hear that. They're all drinking the Dobbs Kool-Aid. We broke down the film. There's a reason this guy's a journeyman. He cannot throw the ball. Like he's terrible at throwing the ball. That's his Achilles heel. He's an incredible runner. He's really smart. He's done really well picking up all these different offenses. But this guy is under 3 points on the road after he just beat up what? He beat Atlanta and beat the Saints. Like, it's just an overreaction. The NFC South is one of the worst divisions in all of football. So I get it. It's a fun story. This guy deserves his roses, but now he's going to Denver, somewhere we talk all the time, Chad. That altitude's a real thing. It's tough to play there. That's a real home field advantage. That Denver defense is the difference to me. Like, I know Russ, he's going to struggle against some things they want to do offensively, the Vikings, but they're going to be able to run the ball. Williams has looked great for this Denver's offense. And then you go to the defensive side, their defense is going to be able to take away what Dobbs wants to do. They're going to be able to spy him. And then what? If he's getting spied and he has to throw the ball, it changes their offense. So, yeah, he's had a great run here, right? The Atlanta game, that was amazing. That comeback was incredible. The Saints game, I mean, Chris gave us all the stats. That was just a bad spot to back the Saints team. Dennis Allen, Derek Carr as a favorite on the road. This is where it runs out, right? He's finally on the road. The numbers move too much. If there's 3.5, I could be convinced to be on the Vikings. But the fact you'll be able to get under a field goal on a home team against Dobbs, who, what is he having 2-9 straight up in his career, including last week? It's just not the spot to take Dobbs here. So I'm going to back Denver under a field goal at home.
All right. Well, last week we had Raybon on the Raiders and Simon on the Jets. This week we have Simon on the Broncos. And where's Raybon?
On the Vikings. And it's not about the Dobbs Kool-Aid, honestly. It's just I was sure that I was going to be fading Minnesota sometime soon. I mean, they won 5 out of 6 or something like that. But you look at this matchup to me, and I think it favors the Vikings once again. So you have Minnesota uses the most play action in the league by far. And this was true even once Dobbs came over. His play action rate jumped 5% from what he was doing in Arizona. The Denver Broncos are the worst defense in the league against play action. And that's for the year they're giving up 148 passer rating. Even on their 3-game win streak, and they're still giving up over 11 yards an attempt on play action. They just happen to play some offenses, Kansas City, Buffalo. They don't really use the play action a lot. But Minnesota does. And then on the other side, Minnesota's the most blitz-heavy defense in the league, maybe ever. They're blitzing about half the time. Wilson has the biggest passer rating drop-off, blitz to no blitz. His passer rating drops 34 points when he is facing a blitz. And Minnesota is also the best run defense the Broncos have faced on this winning streak. The Chiefs are one of the worst in the league. The Bills are below average, and the Packers are one of the worst in the league. So Minnesota's a top 10 run defense in terms of EPA per play. They're 7th. So this is it's just a tough matchup for the Broncos schematically. And then they're on a short week. They played primetime last week. Primetime road teams, going up against home teams on a short week are 44-22 against the spread over the last 2 decades, 67%. So I like the Vikes.
Yeah, I thought that analysis was great. And it's a really tough one. I think at 3, it's kind of a pass for me on both sides. I think it's lying right. I don't think you're getting much of an edge. I'm not.
Who's the coward now?
I'm not looking to be. Hey,
pick a side. Be a man.
I'm not looking to be a coward.
Oh,
I
gotta
was
go with
gonna
this tackle
say-
props. I'm scared to go on the side.
I was going to say, I kind
Don't
of
talk
like
crap
Sean
about tackle
Koerner's-
props, Raybon.
no
I kind
offense.
of like Sean Koerner's heavily juiced, heavily sugared tackle
Minus
prop.
135 isn't that much juice, Chad.
Then
Hey, the sides are minus 110, Chad. Either way.
it's true. But I don't think there's any edge in the side at -3. If it was 2.5, I'd be on the Broncos. At 3, I feel like there's no real advantage and I have more of an edge. And that's what this is about. It's about making dollars. It's not about trying to prove how courageous you can be. So give me Harrison Smith and under the 6.5 tackles, because that's been an emerging market that I've kind of enjoyed this year. I will not be bullied into making a pick just because you guys are trying to scare me. Convince Me is presented by Bet365. Bet365 doesn't do ordinary. That's why you get more boosts with them than with anyone else. Every day they power up the odds on hundreds of bets to give you a chance to win more. Bet365 boosts specific markets, your winnings, and even parlays. They don't stop there. Keep an eye out for their biggest and best odds with the incredible Super Boost. Check out the boosts and see why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older and present in Colorado, Iowa, New Jersey, Ohio, or Virginia, or 18 and older in Kentucky. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. Terms, conditions, restrictions apply. Don't forget, me and Simon, December 3rd, our Sunday night podcast is going live. The Shepherd and the Knucklehead, Hoboken, New Jersey. You must RSVP. Doors will open around 3:45, 4 o'clock. Free drinks. Bet with us. Enjoy. Entry is free. Come watch us. Be very courageous in all our bets. The info is in the Power Hour YouTube description, or go to eventbrite.com, search the favorites podcast for more info. Download the app to find all of our picks. Like and subscribe to the YouTube page. Let's go to the touchdown show.
Thank you, Chad, and the whole Kibitsby crew, and welcome to week 11 of the Touchdown Show on the Action Network, presented by Bet365. I'm Gilles Gallant. I'm joined every week by Charlie Disturco and Brian Matthews, a.k.a. the B-Man. Now, Charlie, I said I was going to do this. I was being a little negative last week. I said I would be the first person to congratulate you. You got Bijan Robinson touchdown last week, proving that Arthur Smith is not a complete idiot and that he would use his resources properly. And B-Man, you got Mike Evans touchdown as well. And I bring these up because I think the show was starting to get back on the right track, guys. Like, we had some bad luck. We're up about 4.2 units in profit for every pick that we've given out on the show this year. That includes the Bet365 boosted parlays. And Charlie, we've got some frisky primetime games coming up for tonight and tomorrow compared to your Jets versus the Raiders last week.
Yeah, the Jets have back-to-back primetime games, didn't score a single touchdown. I think it's up to 36 straight drives now. So anytime the Jets are on prime time, it's an absolute disaster for us especially in the touchdown market. But I think this one tonight, we'll see a lot more scores. Josh Dobbs 2-0 with his new team, the Vikings, and the Denver Broncos look like a real team now. So I don't know about BMAT, but I do think that, the narratives are really lining up for a few more scores tonight.
I mean, I like these games going in. The mental simulations are strong. I may or may not have already bet Josh Dobbs and TJ Hawkinson touchdowns. So I'm going to leave it there. I'm sure there will be more picks coming in, but I'm definitely more excited for this one than the Jets, because if I keep betting Breece Hall touchdown, man, I'm going to go broke here soon.
Yeah, the Jets touchdown market, again, it will it could make you sink or swim at this stage. And Vikings Broncos, that's for Sunday Night Football. We're going to talk about that game a little bit more. And then, of course, on Monday night, we've got the main headline of Eagles and Chiefs. That's going to be a banger as well. All right, so here's how the show is going to work today. We're each going to have 3 or 4 picks. We're going to start off with kind of our best bets and then keep going up with difficulty till we finally get to some spicy long shots, maybe some 2 touchdown bets, first touchdown bets, really kick up the notch of fun and difficulty here. And then after we give out our picks, we're going to reveal our special anytime touchdown boosted parlay from Bet365. There's no gimmicks, just some boosted odds on players we like to score, maybe some guys that just missed the cut. Maybe their value just wasn't quite there to make the show, but then we're able to be able to jump in and boost those odds. And Bet365, the touchdown show, is presented by Bet365 because Bet365 doesn't do ordinary. That's why you get more boosts with them than anyone else. Every day they power up the odds on hundreds of bets to give you a chance to win more. Bet365 boosts specific markets, your winnings, and even parlays. And they don't stop there. Keep an eye out for the biggest and best odds with the incredible Super Boost. Check out the boost and see why it's never ordinary at Bet365. 21 plus only or 18 plus in Kentucky and present in Colorado, Iowa, Kentucky, New Jersey, Ohio, Virginia. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER in Colorado, Kentucky, New Jersey, Ohio, Virginia, or 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. Terms and conditions and restrictions apply. All right, gentlemen, let's get started with week 11. And I'm going to give out my best bet for week 11. And I'm going immediately to the Titans Jaguars, and I am going to take Derrick Henry for an anytime touchdown around plus 180. He's around plus 170 to plus 175. I still think these odds are ludicrous because, yes, he only has 17 red zone carries this year. This isn't the Derrick Henry that we've seen like in the past couple of years, but he's still the focal point of this offense. And historically, Derrick Henry just gets stronger as the season goes along. This Jaguars defense, much stronger this year, but they did give up 144 rushing yards to the Niners last week. They can be run on. Now, I think it's important to note when we're betting on Derrick Henry for a touchdown, historically what he has done to this franchise because he owns the Jaguars. In 13 career games, he's got over 1,300 rushing yards and 15 touchdowns. That's the most of any player all time versus the Jaguars. And last year, he had 47 carries for 230 yards and 1 touchdown in 2 games. And in those games, I tracked the anytime touchdown odds. He was at minus 125 in Jacksonville and minus 190 in Tennessee. And now we're seeing plus 175 or plus 180 odds. For me, I know people will say, well, the Titans O-line's a bit shaky. You know, Will Levis, rookie quarterback. I'm not really sure where this offense is going to go. But guys, with this offense, all it takes is a DPI in the end zone. You know that Levis is going to sling it down the field. He's still a rookie quarterback. He's still going to need to hand it off to Henry in those scoring positions. And also Derrick Henry, he's just from outside of Jacksonville. So this is always usually a little bit of a homecoming for him. He loves playing there. All of his family comes to the games. He mentioned about how many tickets he's got to get all set for this game. So Derrick Henry at plus 180 is my best bet for week 11. Charlie, so that's my best bet. You've got a best bet from this game as well. Who are you taking for your best bet in week 11?
Yeah, so I do love Henry because of the usage that he's going to get. One of my friends this week told me that in fantasy he was debating on sitting him. I'm like, look at his numbers against the Jaguars. It doesn't really matter who. If
tough call.
You're playing Derrick Henry, but my best bet does come from the other team in this one, and it's Calvin Ridley at plus 200. I think this is a dream matchup for Calvin Ridley, and I know that people in the prop market are probably not the happiest with him because since week 1 he really hasn't made a splash when it comes to yards and touchdowns. He hasn't scored in I believe it's 4 or 5 games now, but Tennessee is 31st in DVOA to the wide receiver 1 position and are allowing the highest outside wide receiver target rate and second highest first read rate. And what does that mean? That means that Calvin Ridley is going to get plenty of looks here. I think it's finally a chance for them to get right. We saw them score just 3 points last week against the 49ers, and they're running through the offense a lot in the slot. And I think that this is the perfect opportunity to really feed the ball to Ridley to get things right and get things going. Jamal Agnew's out. Zay Jones is questionable. So with a guy like Ridley, who has 8 red zone targets and just 1 touchdown, I think that this is a good buy spot on him in a dream matchup against the Titans pass defense that is absolutely horrid. So at 2-1, can't pass it up. Guys that have, played Tennessee, just real quickly. Olave, 8 for 112. Keenan Allen, 8 for 111, 2 touchdowns. Zay Flowers had a touchdown. Deontay Johnson scored a touchdown after and Mike Evans last week, BMAC was on him, 10 for 143 and a touchdown. So feed the wide receiver ones. Give me Ridley plus 200.
Yeah, count me as one of those people who's been disappointed in Calvin Ridley, specifically from a fantasy perspective, because, I really had high hopes for him coming to this offense. Right. Now, this is a very much a get-right spot on this Titans defense that, like you said, historically, just outside receivers have burned them over and over again. At plus 200, I think this is a solid look, especially with just how he's looked lately. He's not hurt. I think it's just this Jaguars offense needs to get right, and I think this is a spot that they can do that with. So kudos to you for grabbing Calvin at plus 200 or better. All right, Brian, this guy was a pretty popular pick just coming off of IR, but I'm so impressed with what he has done in the NFL so far. Tell us who your best bet is for week 11.
All right, so I'm going with Devon Achane. I mean, look, the guy just makes plays. And I think the best part about it, if you go back and look, it's 7 touchdowns in his last 3 games prior to, him being on IR. But the crazy thing, he wasn't doing it with 25 and 30 touches a game. He was doing it with 11 and 18 and 20 touches per game. I mean, in those 3 games. The guy just makes plays. I also look at this matchup. The Raiders over their last 3 games have given up the 3rd most rushing yards per game. I don't think Miami's going to have too much trouble with the Dolphins. So the way I see it, they get up and then, you can lean on the ground. But it's not like Achane isn't going to be worked in earlier in the game. So at plus 120, I feel like we're going to get these odds today because he's just coming back from IR. But I don't think they're putting him out there if he's not healthy enough. And they said he's full go this morning. So give me Devon Achane at plus 120 for today.
Yeah. The Dolphins are averaging an insane 43.5 points per home game right now. Now, obviously, some of that is ballooned from the 70-point output against the Broncos, where Achane went off in that game too. But they still have been putting up 31. Like, they're putting up at least 3-4 touchdowns per home game. And especially if this game gets out of hand and Mostert ends up going to the bench, Achane could definitely get in there. I kind of equate him to a rich man's Keaton Mitchell. Like, I think Keaton Mitchell is pretty good, but I think Achane is definitely an upgrade there. So I guess the next question I wanted to ask you, Brian, before we give out our second best bets, is Achane coming off the IR now, and this offense has a ton of guys probably in tier 1 that you write about at theactionnetwork.com about your touchdown tiers. So like a Tyreek Hill, maybe a Raheem Mostert are in tier 1. Did Achane ever make tier 1 for you, or is he still hovering just outside of tier 1?
So he's high tier 2. So basically, the only reason I'm doing that is just he's coming back from IR. So in case there is, some sort of a workload restriction, which we haven't heard anything about, but still he's high tier 2. I clearly love him. So Achane to the moon, hopefully.
Yeah. And it sounds like too, a lot of the time with the tier 1 guys, those are the ones that usually make the bet boost parlay that we do for Bet365, where their odds are, it's obvious, like a Eckler who's at like minus 160, for example. All right. So cool. So check out those touchdown tiers at actionnetwork.com. And now let's move on to our second best bet of week 11. And Charlie, this might be a double whammy for you, but on both sides, either good or bad. I want to hear more now about your best bet for week 2. Or week 11,
I'm a glutton for pain. That's really just the end of the story here. So I love Garrett Wilson at plus 240. His odds have come down a little bit. I still like it at whatever it is right now, above a 2 in it. You look at his numbers, 12 targets in 4 straight games. It's clear that Zach Wilson has Garrett Wilson on his mind every single time. When it comes to blitzes, when it comes to anything, he's the first read target, about 40% of a target and an air yard share in this Jets offense. And listen, I mentioned earlier, 36 straight drives without a touchdown. I think that the time to really back them is against this Buffalo defense. I mean, we saw the Broncos were able to get through them. We've seen plenty of teams in the past month slice through this defense. It doesn't matter. They have the offensive changes going on. That defense is still atrocious. And Trey White is not going to save it because he's hurt. So this is a smash spot for me as far as Garrett Wilson goes. He scored a touchdown in week 1 against the Bills on that unbelievable play. He has 5 targets inside the 10-yard line, just 1 touchdown. I think that, I think there's going to be touchdowns in this game. So I like Garrett Wilson at plus 240. Maybe a little Breece Hall too, but Garrett Wilson's my guy as far as the touchdown picks go.
Yeah. And this kind of reminds me of the Bijan pick, like where I said at the end of it, I was like, if not now, then when? Like at some point, you've got to take advantage of the decent matchups. And you laid it out perfectly. This Bills secondary, they rank so low against wide receiver 1 as far as DVOA is concerned. Against the pass, same thing. If not now, then when is he going to score a touchdown? So getting it at plus 240, though, I think is solid because usually across the board right now he's around plus 180 to plus 210. So again, shop around. But the fact that you're able to get a plus 240 and that's hanging out there right now, that's the angle that you want to take, is you want to make sure you get the best price for your touchdown prop. All right, Brian, next game, very high total for this Texans-Cardinals game. And one of these players taking advantage of a bit of an injury here for the Cardinals and had a nice little game last week. Talk about him. Who is your second best bet for week 11?
Yes, so it was down between Cole Kmet and Trey McBride. And look, Trey McBride won out. So I know you said he had a good game last week, but if we rewind 3 weeks ago, he's putting up 90-plus yards in that game too. So he's not just a guy that we're bringing in. It's like, all right, he's kind of, I mean, he's impressive. We've seen what he's done. I mean, he has a 31.5% target share over his last 3 weeks or since Zach Ertz has been down. And then you look at Kyler Murray comes in his first game and McBride goes off. I mean, he ends up having over 100 yards receiving. The only thing he didn't do is have a touchdown. So I'm looking at the total here. I'm also looking at the matchup. And the Texans have just been, they have been destroyed by tight ends. Very friendly for that matchup. So, yeah, it really came down to those two. But I just think Kyler, he clearly showed that he's got a good rapport with him. I think he's an upgrade athletically from Ertz at this point in Ertz's career. And so I think that McBride finds the end zone today at plus 240. Sign me up.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things, too, that's really interesting is how he couldn't really get out of the way of Zach Ertz until Zach Ertz finally goes down. Like even last year, he was finally able to get some snaps. Same thing as Ertz missed a game. And then you're starting to see actually how talented Trey McBride is. And now with Kyler back at quarterback, you're finally able to see, okay, a guy who can actually decently throw the ball. Not to say that Josh Dobbs can't throw or Clayton Tune definitely can't throw the ball. But I guess what I'm getting at is that this is a good spot where now maybe we're getting ahead of the market, because if he scores this week, we're probably not going to get it at this kind of odds anymore. And it is a very friendly matchup. And I just think the range of outcomes of right now, what this Cardinals offense can do with Kyler at quarterback is all over the place. Like I like Kyler to throw an interception. I also like him to run in a touchdown today. Like, there's so many things that he could do today and I think that's one of the reasons why I love betting touchdowns in that game specifically, because I think we're going to see a little bit of a shootout. All right, I'm going to move to the afternoon slate, a game that probably isn't going to be a shootout. It's probably going to be a defensive slog, and that's between the Buccaneers and the 49ers, where the 49ers are large double-digit favorites. But I do like a touchdown from the underdog here. I like Chris Godwin to get a touchdown for the Buccaneers. Now, I grabbed it at plus 300. It's currently plus 333 at Bet365. So if you're wanting to get on Godwin now, go grab it because that's the best odds out there. So here's why we like Godwin to score a touchdown. So he does lead the team in red zone targets with 12, but he only has one touchdown this year. That was against the Bills defense, hence the Garrett Wilson pick. But now he hasn't scored since week 8 versus the Bills, but the 49ers defense, that's who we're focusing on right now. They've been getting abused by slot receivers lately. In the last 3 games, here's the output of the slot receivers that they have faced. So Jordan Addison, he had 7 catches for 10 targets, 123 yards and 2 touchdowns. Tyler Boyd, 3 catches, 45 yards and a touchdown. And then this past week, even though he had a dirty fumble in Niners territory, he still was pretty good with 6 catches and 11 targets and 104 yards. That was Christian Kirk, also a slot receiver for the Jags. So now the default usually is we go from Mike Evans because he's around plus 220 to plus 240, pretty decent odds for a guy who has scored in pretty much all but 2 games this year, and especially that connection that they have with Baker Mayfield. But I just think that Godwin is the guy we want here in this spot because of the physicality of this defense that they're facing. Like when these teams played last year, Godwin led the Bucs in catches, targets, and yards. Now Brady was at quarterback, obviously, but that was Brock Purdy's first start, and they just basically kicked the crap out of the Buccaneers in that game. But why I say that is because Godwin has been the most efficient receiver for the Bucs in these types of spots. This is going to be a tough physical game where I think Godwin is going to score a touchdown. So give me Godwin to score a touchdown at plus 300. And let's wrap that up. Now let's talk about Sunday Night Football between the Vikings and the Broncos with an over-under of 43. Now he hasn't been able to do a little bit of in-depth analysis on Sunday Night Football as much as he wants to over the last little bit. But we do have Dr. Nick Giffen back this week, who is going to break down his favorite bets for Sunday Night Football. Nick, take it away.
Thank you, Gilles, and happy week 11 to all of you out there. I'm Nick Giffen, predictive analyst here at Action Network, and I'm here to walk you through anytime touchdown projections for Sunday Night Football between the Minnesota Vikings and the Denver Broncos. The first player we're showing value on is Courtland Sutton at plus 210 at Bet365. The matchup isn't ideal for Sutton, who has fared better against man coverage than zone coverage, and Minnesota does play zone coverage at a top 10 rate in the NFL. In fact, Sutton, he has had more than a full yard per route run, better against man coverage than zone coverage in each of Russell Wilson's 2 seasons at quarterback position in Denver. That said, I think the market may be overcorrecting in here in lengthening the plus 210. Sutton's still a red zone beast. He has the 9th most targets in the NFL inside the red zone with 12, which is double his nearest teammate Adam Troutman, who has just 6. That's why we're projecting fair value on Sutton at plus 175, so really like it here at plus 210. The next player we're close to showing value on has had a lot of movement this week, and that's TJ Hawkinson. Now, if you can get him at anything longer than plus 250, we'll be showing value, but right now we aren't showing value on him. We do like him because Josh Dobbs is the quarterback at Minnesota, and Josh Dobbs has targeted the tight end position at over a 30% rate at each of his 3 stops at Tennessee, Arizona, and now Minnesota. It's also a great matchup for Hawkinson against Denver, who is 26 in defensive DVOA against the position, allowing an above average rate of targets to the position per game. Of course, Justin Jefferson is reportedly still out, so he's not going to be able to steal some of those targets as well. So wait this out. Odds tend to get a little bit longer toward kickoff, and if we do get above plus 250 on Hawkinson, we do like grabbing it there. So there you have it. Those are the 2 players we're either showing value on, pretty close to showing value on from our predictive analytics team here at Action Network. Gilles, back to you.
Beautiful. Thank you, Nick. Previewing Sunday Night Football. So Nick likes Courtland Sutton at plus 210 along with TJ Hawkinson, but wants you to get odds of plus 250 or better. Now, I will say that Nick and we do talk off air sometimes about the touchdown picks. So I will say that I am aligned with him. I was able to grab those 2 guys last night. A video of mine will come out as well later, echoing kind of the same picks. If anything, I might just take that video and just superimpose my face in at the end and say, I agree, and then just post that on social media. But gentlemen, I wanted to ask you, when you look at the touchdown odds for Sunday Night Football and you see a total of 43, is there anybody here that is immediately standing out like, I got to go grab this right now? Or are there guys that right now you're just like, I don't really get why the odds are this way? Charlie, why don't you go first?
Yeah, I kind of wait until closer to game time. I feel like that's when the odds jump up. But like a guy like Javonte Williams, he's like just above that plus 100 mark, like 120. I think he just based off pure usage of how the Broncos are using him now that he's back and fully healthy off that torn ACL. That I like him to score, but also at the same time like to wait a little bit because the odds just at this point. And then when it comes to a long shot, I'll probably be eyeing Marvin Mims. He's a home run threat. They said that he was gonna get used last week, and I bet on that. And then he had one end around. So, but he did play like about 70% of snaps. So he was running routes. He just wasn't getting the ball. I think that if you're running that much and what is now a pretty decent offense, plus 500 is pretty good odds. And, I think that might even go up closer to game time because of the, it always feels like closer to game time is when everything gets jumped up and you can make a nice little snag.
Yeah, I think you made a good point there. Nick did too, about how the primetime odds in general, and this isn't exclusive to one sports book. This is just in general, that a lot of the time the odds are maybe a little bit more steamed at the start. And then as we get closer to kickoff and more money is coming in on different guys, you're starting to see the market shake out properly. And then you're able to maybe swoop in and take a little bit of an advantage on a guy who's maybe had inflated odds as we get closer to kickoff. Brian, you mentioned that you were already on Josh Dobbs. Is there anybody else maybe on the Broncos side that you're considering?
Yeah, Courtland Sutton, all the guy does is catch touchdowns. I mean, it's insane at this point. Like, I kept thinking, like, all right, that's going to be done this week. I thought that 4 weeks ago, and now here we are. So it's hard not to like Courtland Sutton. Vikings are a tough match around. Javonte Williams, though, is getting more work as a receiver, and he's just looked great. So I do like that look as well. But yeah, that would probably be my pick from over there.
Yeah, for sure. And Courtland Sutton, again, touchdowns in 7 to 9 games. If it's not broken, don't fix it, especially if you're getting it over plus 200 at this stage. Yes. I think Hawkinson is interesting because Nick did bring up a good point about Josh Dobbs and his career, about how much he targets tight ends, about 30% target share in that spot. And then the fact that Jefferson, since he's been gone, Hawkinson's gotten like 1 billion targets. He has like 56 targets over like the last 5 games. Yeah. And just in the last 2 games, he's got 27 targets with Dobbs. So, that kind of volume, it's kind of hard to ignore in a touchdown market. So especially with how the Broncos have fared against tight ends. So that's Sunday Night Football, but let's finish up our Sunday bets for the 1 p.m. and 4 p.m. Eastern slate. Yeah. Brian, you've got some long shot bets that you're considering. Take us away. Who do you got?
All right, look, so Cooper Kupp, I wanted to play his first touchdown earlier this year. He was on the boost. I went against it. I think this is the right spot for him to come back. Look, if Matthew Stafford is playing and he is fully healthy, then I am all on board with Cooper Kupp. It's just, it just hasn't been there the last couple weeks. All right. Rippon hasn't been the guy. So Stafford's practiced in full. I'm hoping this isn't a Joe Burrow situation where we don't know something coming in. But look, if Matthew Stafford's healthy against the Seahawks, Cooper Kupp is the guy. So I think, either team could score first. I definitely do. But I just think Cooper Kupp goes off today. I think he's had some down games. Puka Nacua had a good game in between. So I think it's Cooper Kupp's turn. And with Stafford back, I think there's enough points to be had in this game. So I'm going to go Cooper Kupp first touchdown score at plus 800. That's going to be my first one. I'm going to do 0.25 units on that. So quarter unit there. And then I'm going to break another quarter unit. And I'm going with Brian Robinson first touchdown score. I don't know who else scores. This one just makes way too much sense. So they're playing a very bad. I see, Charlie, you like this. A very bad Giants team. All right,
the Giants.
Yeah, they're not a good team. DeVito's at quarterback. They can't do anything on offense. Their run defense is terrible. And now you're telling me Antonio Gibson is doubtful. Probably not going to play when somebody gets a doubtful tag. So Brian Robinson, he is their guy. The funny thing is, he's not their short yardage guy. I mean, he's found a way to score. What do you have, 100 yards receiving?
Against Seattle.
Week? So it's it's like, all right, well, he scored a touchdown that way. So I like the fact that he's involved in both phases. And it just feels like if I'm looking at this, I'm not saying Washington is the best defense in the NFL, but, it feels like if I'm looking at which team should score the first touchdown, should be Washington. So I'm going to go with Brian Robinson, who's just a horse, touchdown in 4 of his last 5. Give me him to score first at plus 450.
Beautiful. All right. Cooper Kupp is on brand for you, and Brian Robinson. We're going to talk about him a little bit more after we finish our picks with the boosted parlay. Stay tuned for that. All right. Now I'm going to do the same thing, Brian, where I'm going to take 2 bets and I'm going to put 0.25 unit on each, but I'm going to go to the 2 touchdown market.
Ooh.
And I'm going to go to, I almost feel like these shouldn't even be called spicy picks anymore. This almost should just be like the 2 touchdown, first touchdown market, because that's where we're getting a lot of the good value right now.
Yeah.
And so the 2 guys that I chose for 2 touchdowns today, first one is going to be Josh Allen for 2 touchdowns on the Jets defense. And the next one, Davante Adams for 2 touchdowns at 20 to 1. I could not pass on Davante Adams. I had to do it, guys. I'm going to take my kick at the can for Adams. I'm going to get this through for Charlie and the whole show. Now, historically, Davante is a touchdown machine. He still has the most receiving touchdowns in the NFL since 2020. It's just really bad luck this year at quarterback. Jimmy has looked for him, but Jimmy's in and out of the lineup. Then you got Brian Hoyer for a week, and then Aiden O'Connell's in and out of the lineup too. Now they're getting a little bit more consistency at quarterback with Aiden playing now his 4th game. But last year through 10 games, guys, Davante Adams had 10 touchdowns. He had 3 games of 2 touchdowns scored in that span. This Dolphins defense much better now with Jalen Ramsey. But I still think Adams is going to see double-digit targets. So at 20 to 1 for a receiver of his talent, we've got to take a swing at those odds. For Allen, it's more just, is he going to get the second one? Because he scored 1 rushing touchdown in 7 of 10 games, 4 straight games with at least 1 rushing touchdown, 17 red zone carries. That's tied with actually Jalen Hurts for the most quarterback rushing touchdowns with 7 this season. This Jets defense, though, and we saw it even in week 1, he had 3 interceptions. It's just really difficult to pass on. You look through the DVOA numbers and just the overall numbers in general.
Yeah. You
just can't pass on this defense, but you can run on them a little bit. They've only allowed 1 wide receiver touchdown all year, and it was in week 1 to Stephon Diggs. They haven't allowed 1 since. And with Josh Allen, part of the reason why I'm looking at this rushing touchdown angle is because of the interceptions. So he threw 3 in week 1 versus the Jets. He leads the NFL in interceptions right now. Part of it is that when he gets to the goal line, maybe he doesn't try to make the splashy play of trying to force it in there to Diggs, who's been complaining a lot, or Gabe Davis. Instead, he just tucks and runs and wills it in. And I think that's part of, we saw him even last year. He scored 2 touchdowns on this Jets defense. It's much better this year as opposed to last year, but still the same thing. It's a lot of the same personnel. So those are my 2 picks. We're going to go with Josh Allen for 2 touchdowns at 11 to 1 and Davante Adams for 2 touchdowns at 20 to 1. Charlie, take us home. What is your spicy bets for week 11?
Yeah, I mean, I have to get this in there before I go. The Devontae Adams, man, I think his face is plastered on a dartboard in my apartment because I think I've played him 3 or 4 times, and it seems like he's just never. He just hasn't scored it, and every time I'm like, oh, he's due. I love this matchup for him though.
You did get one just before you say it. You did get the one though when they played against the Bills in week 2. Pretty much right off the bat, and ever since then, I don't think we've seen him near the end zone since.
Yes, between him and Michael Pittman, those two are just absolutely disastrous in my life. But when you look at this, I have a couple of 2 touchdowns as well, and I was actually stuck between first and 2 touchdowns on one of these guys. But sticking in that Seattle Rams game, BMAT likes Cooper Kupp. I like the other wide receiver one, DK Metcalf, at 14-1, and then in Dallas, Carolina, I like Tony Pollard to finally get it done 2+ at +550. DK Metcalf, right? He's a 4-game touchdown drought, gets a good matchup against the Rams where they're 20th in DVOA to the wide receiver position. We saw CeeDee Lamb just go for 2 touchdowns a couple weeks ago. George Pickens, AJ Brown both had monstrous games against this defense. And DK Metcalf did score against them all the way back in week 1. So he's no stranger to being able to slice up this defense. And BMAT mentioned it's going to be a higher scoring game. I think it's going to be a higher scoring game. So I like, with Tyler Lockett being questionable, it's likely that he suits up, but a questionable with a hamstring injury could lead to less snaps. And that means DK Metcalf's going to get plenty of looks. He's an explosive receiver too. So 2+ touchdowns at 14-1, I just find is too long. And then Tony Pollard, if not now, when? I like his regular anytime touchdown at -105, 2+ touchdowns at 550. Rico Dowdle's questionable. Popped up on the injury report. So even if they're up by a decent margin, we could still see them force feed the ball to Pollard, who is second with most attempts inside the 10-yard line with 21, yet he has 2 touchdowns. Now he gets a Carolina defense that's 31st in DVOA. The Cowboys offense, they're a motor. They move the football. They have a awful defense in Carolina. So it seems like this is the time. And if you look at Mike McCarthy and listen to anything he said, he's talked about that they need to get Pollard going and they need to give him the ball inside the red zone. It's been no stranger that they've been doing it, just unsuccessfully. But at +550 against a Carolina defense that is atrocious, I'm going to take my swing.
Yeah, I love the Pollard pick. I mean, obviously I'm biased as a Cowboys fan, but at the same time, this Carolina defense has not stopped the run all year. This is the type of game where the Cowboys defense is going to get up. They're going to get up by like 20 pretty early just because their pressure rate and the fact that the Carolina Panthers can't block. So you'll probably see a couple 3-and-outs early. They'll score a couple touchdowns, and then you're going to see the Cowboys just basically set the pace with the run for the rest of the way. So I love this bet for Pollard. I like the Metcalf bet too, but I've been down this road with Metcalf. So again, I think same thing with Metcalf, Adams. Basically, we just need to get 1 touchdown in the first half so we have something to pray for in the second half, because if they're down too much or they're ahead too much, we might not see 2 touchdowns come through for those guys. So those are our spicy bets. Let's now talk about the Bet365 anytime touchdown boosted parlay. Now, Brian is on one of these guys for first touchdown. So the 2 guys that we chose for the anytime touchdown boosted parlay are David Montgomery with the Detroit Lions and Brian Robinson Jr. with the Washington Commanders. So this parlay was around +255. It got boosted up to +280. I think this is a solid spot here, especially for Monty in a revenge game. First game against the Bears, he scored a touchdown in 5 of 6 games. I want to bring up the context of how much David Montgomery has been used in the red zone, because it's kind of out of control. He has 29 red zone carries this year. That's 6th in the NFL overall. That might seem like, okay, that seems appropriate, but he's missed 3 games. So the fact that he is that, like, he would probably have 50 red zone carries right now if he didn't get hurt. And this Bears defense, they've given up 9 touchdowns to running backs this year. Honestly, of the 2, I feel like this one is probably going to be the easier of the check marks, but that's usually the kiss of death. So I don't want to put that kind of label on it. For Brian Robinson though, B-Rob, it's a great matchup. You mentioned it, B-Matt, when we were talking about like this Giants defense. They've given up 12 touchdowns to running backs. And we know that Brian Robinson, he could score in a variety of ways, 5 rushing touchdowns, but also 3 receiving touchdowns, and no Antonio Gibson. So Robinson and Montgomery, I think this is a solid pairing that we're going to be able to hit. Charlie, of the 2, is there anything that's maybe worrying you about the parlay, or do you think this one is a max play? Matt.
No, I love I love this one. B-Matt laid out why he likes B-Rob, so I don't really have to add more on that. And then just Montgomery, he's got the Jamal Williams role from last year. They're just going to force feed the ball. It doesn't matter that there's the new sexy Camaro that's like in the parking lot or whatever, McLaren, and Jahmyr Gibbs. Montgomery is your old reliable. He's going to get it done inside the red zone, and they give him the ball inside the red zone so much. So love this parlay. I think we're gonna go and snag another one. Thanks to Bet365.
Absolutely. And Bet365, the touchdown show, is presented by Bet365, and Bet365 doesn't do ordinary. That's why you get more boosts with them than anyone else. Every day they power up the odds on hundreds of bets to give you a chance to win more. Bet365 boosts specific markets, your winnings, and even parlays, and they don't stop there. Keep an eye out for their biggest and best odds with the incredible Super Boost. Check out the boost and see why it's never ordinary at Bet365. 21 plus only, or 18 plus in Kentucky and present in Colorado, Iowa, Kentucky, New Jersey, Ohio, Virginia. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER in Colorado, Kentucky, New Jersey, Ohio, Virginia, or 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. Terms and conditions and restrictions apply. Also, the Favorites podcast. They're coming up for a live show here on December 3rd, guys. You get to join Chad and Simon. It's a special live Favorites podcast, December 3rd at the Shepherd and Knucklehead in Hoboken, New Jersey. All you got to do is check out the info below in the description of this video in the Power Hour. You'll be able to see more details of how you can attend that event, or you can go to eventbrite.com, search the Favorites podcast for more info. You'll be able to find out how you can attend that way. All right, that's all for today, gentlemen. 4 picks from me, 4 picks from Charlie, and we've got 4 picks from B-Matt. Also, we're going to see you next Wednesday for a special Thanksgiving edition of the Power Hour, going through all the 3 Thanksgiving games. And then again, we're going to see you again for the Touchdown Show on Sunday at 11:30 a.m. Eastern as part of the Action Network Power Hour for week 11. So if you misconvinced me, you can rewatch the show or download the Action Network app. You can get all of our picks in one place. You can also check out all of our week 11 touchdown bets in the Action app. I want to thank you again for watching the Touchdown Show presented by Bet365. Bone Shumps.